A very good evening to you and welcome to Public. Tonight we look into a topic dubbed Constitutional Hammer the year 2020. Chief Justice Dr. David Kenani Maraga has come up with another shocker that caught everyone unaware, especially the National Assembly leadership and also the head of state, where he has actually suggested that Parliament has to be dissolved for the matter of not fulfilling the two-thirds gender rule. And on the show tonight, we are joined by Mr. Edwin Nyakundi, who is a politician. Mr. Advice Mundalo, a political and communication strategist, is also on the show, who will take us through this issue and also finding way forward. Also, Mr. Kibet, who is a political technologist. And before we even proceed, he will tell us what is being a political technologist. My name is Cornelius Omuse and I welcome you to join us in this discussion as we look into what is actually happening in Kenya right now, the constitutional crisis, and whether we need this debate as at now, whether if it's not fulfilled and the COVID-19 pandemic effects, or what is it that can be done at such a time, even as the country is facing towards the 2022 general elections. This conversation is also live on our Facebook page, KAK TV Kenya, and our YouTube channel, KAK TV Kenya. Gentlemen, welcome tonight on Power Brief. Mr. Advice, it's for another time, the second time to be on Power Brief. Mr. Nyakundi is the first time, and also Mr. Kibet. And our viewers keep on looking at us on these masks, but let's keep on. Najua, Mr. Advice, it's really giving you hard time, but we have to persevere as we overcome the COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure.
And just briefly, I just want to bring this matter of the constitutional hammer or the crisis that we are having in the country right now. And our viewers really want to know, where did the rain start beating us? After the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, there are things that were being implemented in the year 2012, 2011, 2013. Na kuna zingine ziliachwa after now the first general election, that is in the year 2013, where Uhuru and Ruto were able to make the government. Indeed, what did the Constitution direct the stakeholders to do after the first general election under the new Constitution?
Of course, thank you, my brother, for having me once again on KAK TV. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, we have had ups and downs in terms of implementation of the Constitution, but it is not like it is very abnormal, because all over the world, it is always a process implementing the Constitution. It takes one step at a time. And when you look at our country specifically, there are things that were able to be implemented, and we have those that have actually given us a lot of problem, like the gender bill. Almost over 5 times, I think, that the trials have been done to implement these have failed. And of course, even we had a court order compelling Parliament to do it. It still was not able to do it. But then I don't think Parliament actually even needed to be really accused too much about the matter, because this is a matter that has actually not been, even the judiciary itself, they don't meet the threshold. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you look at the judges of the Supreme Court, they don't meet the two-thirds gender rule. Mm-hmm. When you look at the executive, they don't meet the two-thirds gender rule. Mm-hmm. I think in Africa, the only country that has been able to make that achievement is Rwanda. Mm-hmm. Yeah, where we have almost all women cabinet. Otherwise, most of the countries, even when you look at the UK and look at the US, this thing has been a very difficult thing to attain. Mm-hmm. Of course, I have my personal view when it comes to about the gender bill in itself, and how Chief Justice Maraga also went about it. Mm-hmm. But in general, generally speaking, it is not something that has given the entire world a very easy time, mm-hmm. and therefore we should not really be able to castigate our Parliament too much for not doing this. Plus, also, Muse, I look at it and feel, if the Parliament has not been able to pass this bill all these times, the Parliament is representatives of the people. Could we therefore also want to imagine that the people are not interested in the gender bill? Mm-hmm. That is not what that is one of the lines of discussion, mm-hmm. that we have failed to take. Mm-hmm. We are just saying that they have refused to adhere to the Constitution. But are we also asking ourselves, does it then mean the people don't want it? Mm-hmm. I think that's also a discussion we need to have.
We'll get there now. Mr. Political Technologist, before you say anything that I'm going to task you to say or to explain, our viewers are interested to know what are political technologies. Have been in class of politics for some years, both in the field and out of the field.
Yes.
I think it's the first time I'm coming across such a term.
Okay, in the international politics, political technologies is not a new term. These are people who deal and dwell in data. So we analyze trends, analyze the big data, and then come up with the perceptions that you, as a voter, will pump you what you need to hear. So per se, what we do is we combine politics, the hearsays, and then we combine the technology and big data, and then.
Oh, so things like tyranny of numbers has been originating from people like you.
The
Bring A,
Cambridge
bring B,
Analytica
bring
and
C.
the likes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, before I bring in Mr. Nyakundi, let's look into that article of the Constitution that has led us to be where we are tonight after Maraga has directed that let's move towards this direction and things are happening at that direction.
Yes.
What is that part of the Constitution that talks about this, and at what point was the Maraga effect supposed to come on board?
If you look at Article 261, I think sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, Maraga, I think on my own perspective, he did what he needs to do, because there's a procedure that has been stipulated in the Constitution that until the decision that he made on Monday, before he arrives there's a process that needs to be followed. I think he followed, he underwent, that Constitution process was undergone really well. There was a High Court order that compelled Parliament to proceed with the implementation of the gender rule. Parliament never implemented the gender bill. So afterwards, it was supposed that the Chief Justice advises the President in terms of the implementation and dissolving of the Parliament. So I think what he has done is constitutional right, but also it has a political angle that has been pegged. We all understand that there's a fight between the judiciary and the executive, and Maraga is about to retire. I think in 5 months' time, he's about to retire. So also he wants to go down in legacy, that in history that he has achieved some legacy of dissolving the Parliament, in pretense that he was trying to ensure that the Constitution is being implemented. But the key problem that we have as a country is the issue of constitutionalism. We have an executive that has not obeyed almost 200 court orders. And also we have a Parliament also that had some recommendation made to the judiciary about such certain amendments that need to be done in the Constitution. They have not been adhered to. So the problem is between the three arms of government. The judiciary should not be blaming the legislature or blaming the executive for not adhering to those rules. All of them, they are not adhering to the Constitution rules that are being stipulated.
We're coming there, Mr. Kibet, and Mr. Nyakundi, and the other panelists, Mr. Mundalo, and also you yourself, Kibet, will say something about it. We want to establish this thing. The Constitution talked of the Chief Justice, and by then I think the Chief Justice was Mutunga. We had, was it Gisheru? Before now Mutunga came, and then currently we are having Maraga. What Chief Justice Maraga did, there are those ones who are talking of he acted as a person. In fact, even our discussion, I'm sorry because I'm also part of that bandwagon where we are mentioning a personality and forgetting to mention the office. So we really need to understand here, as we do our references, do we refer to the person or to the office?
First, thank you very much for having me at CAC TV. It's a pleasure. There is a lot that has been talked about Maraga, but from my point of perspective as Edwin, all this scenario is political. Maraga not once or twice has come on public to claim this has not been pushed, this has not gone right, this has not happened, and at times goes head on to blame the president and his advisors and all that. Maraga came in as a very good guy, as a Christian, a very staunch Christian, and I believe he is. But it does come a time that this country, if you don't align yourself with the current move of politics or current move of government, then you are a wrong person. Either you face impeachment or you face to be a wrong person that the society does not need. But I want to say what really Mwananchi is all about or is wanting. Really Mwananchi want to see about this third gender rule you are talking about. But let's start from the judiciary. Have they, as my friend said,
We'll get there before
have
we
they
start
attained it?
picking our bows and arrows maybe to throw in different directions. You see, when you go to advisory, unamwambia advisory vaa viatu. Okay, they say whoever wants justice must come with clean hands. But have we ever had a scenario in our society where a problem was used to solve a problem? We'll come to your concern. It's very important. And I know even Mr. Advice had brought that thing. So, Mr. Advice, do we need to focus on the office that executed that move of writing to the president to make a move, or we focus now to the person, tunasema ni advice, or both?
You know, when a person is a holder of an office, it becomes very difficult to separate the two, because then they are congruent to one another. But what we can only separate is the interest. We can therefore just maybe ask ourselves whether the CJ acted in the interest of his office or in the interest of his own personal gains, which in my view would be neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, he did what is constitutional. He abided by the rule of law in saying that we need to take up some bullets if we have to ensure that we are living by the dictates of constitutionalism. But then my problem is, as the Chief Justice and the President of the courts in Kenya, he should be more inclined to providing the country solutions and not plunging the country into confusion. Because to what benefit is it for him to plunge the country into a state whereby we are supposed to hold another election in the midst of a pandemic? To what benefit is it for him to take home all the members of parliament and IEBC has to seek billions of money to do another election in the midst of a pandemic? To what interest is it for him to plunge this country into that kind of mess? I think leadership dictates that he, first of all, the role that we gave him as the Chief Justice of this country was to organize us more than to disorganize us. And even if he is acting by the dictates of the Constitution, by the dictates of the law, even if it is in that realm, he should not be throwing us into a state of disorder. This is something, in my view, that he could have picked up with the president, with the stakeholders involved, and I'm sure they could have come up with an amicable solution. But what he's doing,
before we get to there, my brother, I'll have to cut you short a little bit.
Yes.
You've seen a number of times Chief Justice going to the press talking of how he can't even access the head of state. It's been on public. Although communication from the other side, the Attorney General came and talked of their avenues to reach the president. So aren't you trying also to fight him back?
I'm not fighting the Chief Justice, because there is even nothing I benefit from fighting the Chief Justice. I'm just trying to be very reasonable and analytical with this.
What if he was blocked?
Because that is what if, and we are not sure of the facts. You don't look for the president through press conferences. That is a fact. Press conferences do not give you access to the president. Just as the Attorney General said, there are ways in which you can be able to reach the president. Up to there, I agree with the Attorney General. But then, when the Chief Justice, and some of those things are what then make me wonder whether he did this in his own interest or in the interest of the Constitution. Because I'm tempted to think that the Chief Justice was also fighting back. Now that they have not been able to give me this, I will do this to them, which is not the work of a leader. As a leader, he should not be able to be behaving like that, because two wrongs will never make anything right. And so, when the Chief Justice has come out severally to complain about mistreatment, to complain about all these things, which in my view, he is justified to do, because he deserves the respect of both his office and himself as a person. But the biggest problem I have with him is the methods that he has used to address his issues are actually wrong methods. And a person at the capacity of a Chief Justice should know better. Should know better that you don't actually come out guns blazing and start dictating to the president. So tomorrow when the president meets the Chief Justice, the media will say the president bows to the will of the Chief Justice. You see, now that creates unnecessary competition between the president and the Chief Justice. At the end of the day, the Chief Justice should know that as independent as his arm of government is, the president is still the president of the Republic of Kenya, and he deserves the respect that was accorded to him by the millions of Kenyans who voted for him. And as such, it demands that therefore he should accord him the respect.
Mr. Advice, thank you. Now, you talked something very important, both of you, comparing Kenya with other states across the world, how they've been able to transition. When we go to the United States of America, unaona Clinton alijaribu Hillary Clinton akafika mahali. Germany, the Chancellor, we had Angela Merkel. When we go to Britain, we had that woman, and all those people. But let's also look at our history from 2013, and I'm very happy because we have a political technologies. Those people deal with the data. Let's establish something before we go to those all those things that are happening so far in terms of representation. Let's look at the ule utaratibu ambao uko hapo. When we go to the county assemblies, what does the constitution talk about representation on matters gender? And so far, if it has been adhered, if in county assemblies unaweza enda ukasema, hey, we are seeing 8 women, and how did they reach here? Walikuja through nomination. Let's begin from the county assemblies, seeing the procedures that have been put there and whether they have been met so far since the year 2013.
So if you look on the angle of nominations, getting into any position, be it county assembly, national assembly, governorship, or it is either nomination or election. So if you look on the election perspective, a county like Nairobi, we had about 4 women who vied for MCA position. And out of the 4 women, 3 were able to get the seats. So what does that tell you? It tells you that if you vie as a woman, and if you have the right manifestos and the right policies, and if you lure the voters, you can be able to get the seat. You don't need to be nominated or be supported or backed by the constitution for you to ascend to where you want to ascend. If you look at the National Assembly...
How many women do we have out of the total number of the members of the parliament currently?
The members of parliament?
Yeah. Well, what I know is that we have 47 elected women across 47 counties.
That's women rep?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their constitution.
Then the nominated MPs, women?
Nominated women, we have about 5. Yes.
Then we come to other elective ones.
Elective, we have about 7.
So in total, we have a number rising close to 70 of women. So Mr. Advice and Mr. Nyakundi, don't you think that there are steps which have been made since the new constitution was promulgated, and if given chance as we progresses, something could come and tunaweza fikia hivyo, though not that gradually?
Before they pick it up. Now, the issue of gender, Kenyans are taking it wrongly. Because gender is two-way. Yesterday I was listening to a conversation, I think Advice was in that panel. And one of the lawyers was saying, in LSK, right now, it's a women-dominated area.
There's a photo even that has been moving online where Harvey and around 10 women?
It actually has 12 women against 3 men.
Yeah.
Now you see such a country, such a institution. So will we say women have been empowered or men have been submerged? What will we say? So if you're fighting this issue of gender, I think we need to look at it from both angles. Because right now, I believe all the genders have been empowered. Ladies are getting education. The issue of female genital mutilation, early marriages, those are issues that have been thrown away in most of the cultures. So I think there's a fair ground for everyone to vie. The problem is that women have no interest in joining political positions. One, because of the fear, they believe it's a man-dominated field. Most of them, they're more corporate. Because if you go in more corporate sectors, you'll find more CEOs who are women than even men. Actually, the last data that was done by PwC, it was at 60-40 in most corporate private sectors. So you see women are coming up really well in more corporate sectors. So I think they need also to do the same in the political side. I don't believe we need to nominate more women in parliament who are doing nothing. Because there's a clash of role between the women rep, the senator, and the MP. Yes, they do. They support. The role of the senator is normally oversight, legislation, and representation. The role of the women rep per se is this fund that they have, I've forgotten it. So they support issues relating to women. What about these women that will be nominated to fit the gender bill? What will be their role? You see, there'll be no role that they'll be doing. There have women that have been nominated in the county assemblies. They have no role that they do per se. All they do, because nomination goes in either marginalized community, youth, and women. Women are meant to do the women roles. But you get in certain county assembly, you'll get that over 15 nominations that are done are for women. So it means 15 representatives are representing women, and yet we have one youth representative and one disability representative. That doesn't make sense.
Now, thank you Kibet. Gentlemen, tukiangalia kwenye tumekuwa na kwenye tuko, and let's also avoid this issue of the political technologies has brought something very important which Mr. Advice maybe alikuwa anataka kucheza chini lakini ameshikuka leo, in that the 2/3 gender rule doesn't imply woman or man. Are we in agreement to that for all of us?
Yes, yes.
Ya kwamba ni either of the gender, and you've brought up the issue of the LSK. Yeah. Lakini wacha tuangalie mahali ambapo tumetoka since 2013 when we got to this constitution that uende kabadilishwa hivi karibuni through BBI. That's a topic for another day. Where are we? Are we where we were, ama kuna tumesonga na kuna matumaini ya kwamba tunaweza songa mbele?
Thank you very much. I wanted, before I answer that, allow me to respond what Kibet has said about the interest of women to achieve the 3rd gender rule. We have turned this country into a political move every now and then. We are always in campaign, we are always in politics, and we have forgot what are real roles of elected leaders once they have entered into office. Let's start about, let me use an example of 2013 elections. I was on the race as a member of county assembly. The promises that were made gave women more hopes, not even to go to vie or against men because they had nomination in their mind. If today, according to the constitutional analyst, if today nomination can be scrapped, ask Kenyan, Mama Mboga, the real Kenyan, mwananchi, who wakes up in the morning and goes to Soko to pick tomatoes and come to sell, will tell you there is no reason why we should nominate people if indeed they have been defeated in politics. If you go to the County Assembly of Nairobi today, nominated members of County Assembly who are the majority are women. Believe me not, today they are doing nothing since they were nominated. They have not even raised a motion
on the part of
on the floor
performance.
of the
Mr.
House.
Nyakundi, we are coming on that after a quick commercial break, but before we go for a commercial break, let's hear also from Mr. Advice. So far so good. Where are we?
I think so far we have made strides in the right direction in terms of gender equity. And the problem that we are having, in my view, is that the person who wants to create this perception that women need to be given things for free is the person who is against women. That is the person who is trying to say that women are incapable. That is the person who is trying to say that women are unlike men. That is the person who is trying to push a narrative that women must only be given favors for them to survive. The Kenyan woman today is an empowered woman. Go on to LSK, and we have 12 out of 15 elected members as women. That should be able to prove something. Women are capable of rising up and taking up the leadership of this country. They do not need favors. They don't need a lot of this. I'm not against nominations, but we must be able to come to a point where we have guided nominations, yes, whereby we have very few slots of nomination and we have reason for those nominations, which are given to either men or women. Nominations should not just be seats that are given just to fill up space in terms of so that we have a gender represented. Whether that gender that is coming to be represented is men or women, to me, it doesn't make sense. We should not just have leaders elected, then we go and take over 80 human beings and say now we have these 80 men who are just here to ensure that men are represented. I think that is not the kind of country we want to move into. We want a country whereby, for us to achieve the dictates of democracy, that men and women will go outside there and based on their agenda, based on their ideology, based on what they are selling to the people, they will be elected or not elected. That way, we stick by the dictates of democracy. But when we start refereeing democracy, whereby you want to guide the people in who they choose, then that is not democracy at all. Yes.
Unless we revert back to other modalities of electing or selecting leaders.
Exactly.
Many thanks, gentlemen. We take a quick commercial break. And tonight we are looking into the current so-called constitutional crisis after the Chief Justice wrote to the head of state to dissolve Parliament. And we are seeing a number of responses coming from the National Assembly, from the LSK. Nelson Harvey is also saying, yes, it's time to dissolve Parliament. And we found it possible and well to have Mr. Kibet, who is a political technologist, and Mr. Advisory Mundalo, who is a communication and a political strategist, together with Mr. Edwin Nyakundi, who is a politician, to take us through this issue as we look back where we've come from as a country on matters representation and where we are and what is likely to happen. Keep it on CAC TV. Are you looking to grow a business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@cactv.org or call 0794 588 054. Welcome back and many thanks for tuning in to Power Brief on CAC TV. And tonight we are focusing on what we are having all over right now in radios, television, newspapers, and even on the streets, that another hammer has come from the Supreme Court. That is where Chief Justice David Maraga sits. He has sent another hammer. I don't know whether it has hit someone or it is yet to hit someone. That is what Mr. Kibet, Mr. Advisory Mundalo, and Mr. Edwin Nyakundi are trying to bring it out to you to understand what is all about this 2/3 agenda rule. Where did it begin and where did the rain start beating us as a country? And why is it that 6 years, 7 years later on, it hasn't yet been implemented? Do we need this discussion as at now? Or it is something that can wait until we overcome some of the things that we are going through? Someone was comparing this matter to something like, do you kill the baby or you let the baby live until a certain time before doing surgery to that baby? That will be known to you by our panelists who are devoted, dedicated, and well informed on the subject matter tonight. Gentlemen, before we went for a break, we had actually come to establish something, that the 2/3 gender rule doesn't really talk about women. But what comes out is, because whenever it is mentioned, it comes out that people of the women gender are the ones who maybe feel they have not been represented well. But again, we want to go back to numbers and look in these numbers, the composition. Let's talk of the National Assembly and the Senate. Let's look at the general composition. How many constituents do we have? How many have we had as nominated? And if we are to achieve the 2/3 gender rule, which mathematics is going to apply here and its implications? Myself, I exclude myself on this because mambo ya hesabu sana sana hiyo itendo. Najua hata Mr. Advisor haiko poa sana hapo hivyo. Nyakundi, I don't know, maybe, lakini sasa we still come back to you, brother.
Yes. So we have about 290 constituencies in the country. That's National Assembly. And then we add up the 47 women rep. Then now nomination comes from party level. Now ODM will nominate the top party. Presumably in 2017 was Jubilee Party.
Yes.
It will nominate a member to represent the youth. And then ODM will represent a female. If Jubilee represented a male, ODM should represent a female, represent the youth. So we'll have 2 representatives for the youth. And then we'll have a representative for the disability sector. So we'll have, if ODM nominated a woman, Jubilee represent a gentleman. And then we go to now women. We nominate one from the ODM party, then from the Jubilee. And then other parties now will be given slots, 1-1-1 to nominate from that criteria. So CAN will be given 1, ANC will be given 1 in that level. So we'll get about, right now we have about 347, I think.
So in one sitting, when a sitting is happening, Mr. Mundalo and Edwin and Mr. Kibet, one sitting, and it's said that this sitting, all members have attended, beginning from Muturi himself to Lusaka to Cheboy, all of them are in that house. How many members do you expect them in total?
353.
3?
53.
Yes. Now, if we were to get 2/3, 2/3 gender rule, how many, ndio tuseme nyumba imebalance sasa, tufanyie hesabu hapo.
But we need about 100 and something. 111.
Let's talk of
111 to something.
It is
for the men, and then 1 something for the men.
So 1 something, not really men. Tunaweza sema hata wanawake exceed the men in that house, or the other way around. So ndio tupate, someone should be getting as a calculator. Ndio tupate tuseme kwamba sorry, this one has now been fully represented. Wakati wamekaa chini tumeachieve 2/3. With your calculator there, just
I think 115.
The 2/3.
About 115.
2/3, 2 over 3 times 353. It comes to 235.
Yeah, so from 343.
235 from 343.
353, I mean.
353, sorry. The other one we get, subtract 235 from
118.
353. Sorry?
118.
118.
Yes.
Sorry, so it's 118 versus 235. Now we are there. Once the house is comprising of 235 women and 118 men, the house is
set.
Complete.
Yes.
It is set. It is constitutional right.
Or
the other way around. Now, headache comes in. Because once these seats are usually declared vacant, like in May 2017, wakasema sasa time kwenda field, that's where you went. Mr. Mundalo wanted to be a governor. I don't know what happened on the way. That's a story for another day. People declare their interests and then they go run. So we want to see how are we going to force this calculation to come true. Ya kwamba tumepata either of the gender from there. How are we going to force? Weka nomination kando kwanza.
You see, Omuse, it is not the only possibility for us to achieve that is to go down to the party. So that then the party will be dictated that in your strongholds and whatever, this number of seats you must give your party ticket to a woman or a man, depending, which in my view is killing of democracy. Because we cannot have a situation whereby we want to dictate to the electorate who they are supposed to elect. And the only other, and that is actually a method that is quite even impractical. So the only way that we are going to fill those things, if we have to, is through nomination. So we are going to have over 80 slots.
80 more.
80 more. That then we must just nominate people. Just pick them and put them there in parliament. When we are asked the reason why they are there, we say they are there because they are men or they are women.
Laid a very good
and then give them a salary of
$1
million shillings in a country where people are still dying of hunger. It doesn't
You've
make
laid
sense.
a very good ground, my brother, and they say that you cannot have your cake and do it.
And
now, we will exclude in this
discussion. Your cake and
discussion.
have it.
Let's now jump to our two gentlemen here. Mundalo has given two options, which seems to be the best to achieve, or maybe to cut this tie that is bringing headache to political players and everyone. Do we go the political way of saying ODM or ANC or tip kama ni Machakos mnasema kwamba tunapeana ticket kwa 5 women 6 men tumebalance? Do you buy that?
Thank you very much, Umse. But Umse, which country are we living? We are living in Kenya, where we have been fighting for democracy for all. What has changed Is it because we want to achieve two-third gender rule? We can't kill democracy because we want to bring people in power. And that is why the other day when we were talking about the constitution, sorry to bring that on, we can't push for BBI to create if it is about creating opportunities for people. Let's talk about the two-third gender rule. Omuse, we have been in this country for quite some time, whereby nowhere, even in the church, we have achieved this two-third gender rule. As my brother has said, if we can, which is too non-democratic to people, we can, because you can see what happened about the revenue. Why are the party leaders pushing for revenue through their members of parliament, through the members elected, and they can't push for two-third gender rule as per their strongholds? Look at this. If you tell today ODM to go to Nyanza and bring women on board, my friend, you are making Nyanza to burn today. You can't go and bring somebody who has been a teacher and people on the ground, they want a pastor to be their leader. Let's go about this issue of nomination. The only way to balance two-third gender rule is through nomination. And this nomination should not be given because you are my girlfriend, because you are we have a relationship, you are my aunt, you are my uncle, which so many parties have been doing that, and we, on a strong words term possible, I oppose that. Let people be nominated based on their ground of academic profession.
The goalpost now shifts to the political technologies on this matter, because you've talked of nomination and we've just done some calculation here in Litoa advisory.
Just a minute.
Now,
solution.
Just a minute, Omuse. Look at this before incubate comes here.
Yeah.
Omuse. How can look at the nominations that have been going around? Today somebody nominates just a tea girl from his office to be a member of county assembly, and I can prove when time comes. We want to see people, if for example it's about nomination in ODM and we have been given that priority to nominate, let's have a technocrat, let's have an IT expert to come in the representation of, not necessarily must be a youth. We are looking at two-third gender rule, must be. Let's have teachers. I want to give a good example. My brother was talking to me during the break. Look at what ODM did. I sometimes like what ODM does in terms of nomination. Look at Sosyon. Who was Sosyon? Sosyon was just, he is a secretary general of NAT. Therefore, we need a teacher to represent teachers in the parliament. This is the way to go. But I disagree with what Jubilee did, and today will be Jubilee nominated friends, and that should be taken. They take it to the bank. They nominated friends. Who doesn't know?
Let's get to Mr. Kibet on mathematics. Our brother, he gave two options.
Yes.
Which he disowned all of them.
Yeah.
The options that he says, if the worst comes to the worst, which most likely to get there, he disowned both of them. I threw it to Mr. Edwin. Edwin picked one, meaning that it is narrowing. Now we are coming back to you, and then we'll now still take back to the father, or to the one who gave back to those points to see how viable it is.
Yes.
Are we in a capacity to add 80 more members so that we are able to balance this number? Because coming now from 353, this one will come 0, hapa itakuja 3, then itakuja 430.
We'll need 71 to be nominated.
71 more.
Yes.
That's 353 plus 71. 353 plus...
No, it's 290 plus 47 plus 71.
Yeah.
To get 353.
You've added 71 on this number?
Yes.
Now, let's look at it mathematically. Is it practical?
If you do party nomination, that will imply now you start appointing on basis of you are creating ministerial position from the party, so that they represent your interests. You see how they do in parastatal representations, whereby you'll get a parastatal like Agricultural Dairy Board. You'll get a representative from the Ministry of Interior. You go to Kenya Wildlife Service, you'll get a representative from the Ministry of Environment. So if you narrow down to that, that will imply we have serious 11 parties. We have a couple of parties, but we have serious 11 parties in Kenya. So those serious 11 parties, that will imply we give each party at least 6 nomination slots. That will add up to 66. So after that, the others now, the 2 or 3 bigger parties, which is Jubilee, ODM, and maybe ANC, Ford Kenya, or KANU, will be given the rest to fill. That will be practical. Now it will come now to narrow down to this representative who is a woman or who is a man will go and represent issues for the party pertaining trade. We go narrow down and say this woman, who is a woman or a man, will go and represent issues pertaining public relations for the party. So while at the National Assembly, you are addressing issues relating to public relations. So any agenda that as a ODM party or Jubilee PT feels that issues pertaining trade have not been addressed really well, you'll be the one to answer. That is the only way that can be achieved. But now if we go in this basis, which is happening right now in the county assemblies, whereby there are issues known as marginalized. So marginalized initially should be communities that don't get a chance to get majority of positions in the National Assembly or the Senate. Those are the ones who are supposed to be given those positions.
And maybe
But right now, what is happening is, like a county like Nairobi, we have about 15 women who have been nominated. So they've been nominated on no basis. They've been nominated on the category of marginalized.
so the constitution was actually silent on that part of saying who is a marginalized.
Yeah, it was. There's a laguna on that, yeah.
There's a big lacuna.
Yeah.
So which again brings that notion that it's time for a change for the constitution or a relook for it. Because he's talked about Nairobi, and it has also reminded me of some county somewhere near where Advisory comes from, where you find that a majority community has produced majority MCS.
Yes.
That majority community goes ahead and nominates 5 MCS again from that community.
Yes.
When you go to CECs, again they come from that community.
Yes.
When you go to directors and the chief officers, again from that community. Where do we end up there?
That's what I'm saying. As a party, they need to be either the amendment of the party implementation, Party Act, or the Representation Act, or the IBC Act on how parties are supposed to nominate on what basis. Before even we go down and narrowing down how many are we supposed to nominate, we need to change on what basis are we nominating these people. Because we have a few people who are earning over 350,000 and they don't understand what they're doing in that parliament.
You actually, what Omuse should also get clear. Look at what happened during the sermon of the Senate. Somebody cannot even express herself or himself in a proper language, in proper English. The whole of the scenario is Kiswahili and all the mixed of Sheng. That is what I said. The ideology that was taken in nomination is all about who is that, what she has done. That is what we should scrap off. As he said, as my friend said, that's what we should scrap off, and based on professionalism of somebody in terms of nomination.
Now we go back to Mr. Mundalo and take back his luggage, although we've remained with one. Hii nomination seems ni kama inapata favor kidogo, lakini bado kuna hiyo utata. If the worst come to the worst, do you think that is the way for to implement it? Nominate watu lakini with a certain procedure to be followed.
We cannot be in a position as a country where we want to create, put ourselves in a box where we are forced to create positions that do not serve any reason for the country just because we are supposed to attain a certain number. Whether that thing is as per the Constitution or not. Remember, the Constitution is supposed to serve Kenyans, not Kenyans serving the Constitution. And when a point comes when the interests of the Constitution are not synonymous with the interests of Kenyans, what changes is the Constitution, not the Kenyans. So if this thing is in the Constitution and it is not viable, then it should be changed. Because by all decency, in a country that is still struggling with our economy, with the way right now we are talking about children going back to school, we are looking at how parents are not affording this. We are looking at unemployment ratios of the youth. We are looking at a lot of people all over. We are seeing a lot of food distributions in the country. Look at during the COVID time. How many times did you see initiatives to distribute food to families. A country that is at that position cannot afford the luxury of creating positions that don't make sense. Not to mean that I don't want positions, nomination positions, but I'm saying the positions that we create on nomination should be positions that have service. Positions that are going into the parliament to create service for the people. And that service should be something else apart from saying the service is that they are representing a gender. Whether that gender is men or women. Because we should remember that at the point of election, the people who elect leaders are both men and women. We must be alive to that fact. So when we say we are going to nominate somebody to represent men or nominate somebody to represent women, and these people took part in the election, what are we actually saying if we're not mixing ourselves up? The men and women of this country elected leaders. If the men and women of Kirinyaga County gave us Anne Waiguru as the governor, we cannot go into the business of getting another governor in the name of that. We need a man governor in Kirinyaga to spearhead the interests of men in Kirinyaga. We have the people of Kitui County came and gave us Governor Charity Ngilu, a very competent woman. The men of that region cannot rise up to then say we need we need to bring back Malombe to represent the interests of men. So that is what I'm saying, that once people are elected, they're elected by both men and women. We should run away from that facade that we want to create, that we have a certain, because, you know, Omuse, if we want to be reasonable, then we must stop to be popular. If we want to be popular, then we will not be reasonable. Because if we want to be reasonable, you'll even come to the realization that this country does not need the position of women reps. That is if we want to be reasonable. But if we want to be popular, we will lie to ourselves that that position is representing women. Omuse, in your county, how many women have actually been represented by the women rep? Do they even know the women rep? Walk around the streets of Nairobi. Ask these women whether they even know the women rep. Let us not run this facade that women are are weak vessels. Women are strong people, and even during independence, Mekatilili Wamenza was a woman who fought for the independence of this country.
Time has actually run short of us. 10 seconds, you're parting short. Tuendelee namna hii ama tukae chini? 10 seconds each.
I think all I say is very simple. Law is the moral obligation of a person to live right to the people. So what the question we need to ask ourselves, is it morally right to create more positions for this country?
Many thanks, Mr. Nyakundi, in 10 seconds.
Thank you very much for having us here. Finally, what I can say to Kenyans, they have a right to make their choice. If they have elected people in office in a transparent way, let those people occupy offices, and let politicians who have entered into office stop manipulating people. This is the time I want to say Kenyans have woken up. A time, let's face 2022. People are going to elect the people in office, and others are going just to watch.
Many thanks. That's been a wonderful discussion and a debate from our panelists. Mr. Admes, you've done a good job, Mr. Kibet, and also Mr. Nyakundi. They have taken us through this discussion and they have given their peace of mind. And as we say always, this is not the official position of CAC TV, but our panelists' opinions that they bring to you from their experience, where they work and what they have been doing. Indeed, we are at a crisis. We admit from what is happening. But again, its solutions come from us coming together and do what we usually do on Power Brief on matters politics and governance. From me, Cornelius Omuse, I appreciate your overwhelming responses and your feedback on our social media platform. Till next time, I wish you a very good night.